24 hours later, when I walked up to the fire and there's those snake eater special forces, I said, yesterday you were picking your nose when you're having a poop. I seen you masturbating. You don't like mosquitoes. You were sleeping in this place. And they couldn't believe that we were on that small island, and they never got a picture of me. But when they developed the film, I had pictures of them day and night over a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
So
can I just point out these are Canadian special forces? So
yeah, not as good as your American ones.
ground control to Major Tom. Tom is going to be talking about his research. He's going to be talking about what he's got going in the future, and he's going to be talking about his participation in an exciting new show called Cryptid Tank. So it's all going to be great. But before we get any farther, I need to make one little disclaimer. So Tom, before I bring you on, I need to say this. During the course of this podcast, a cryptocurrency called Cryptid Coin is going to be discussed in relationship to the funding Tom Sewid will be applying for on the TV show Cryptid Tank. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. At no time should any of the discussion be taken as financial advice or recommendation. So, Tom, welcome to Encounters USA.
Oh, welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me on and inviting me.
Yeah, well, it's really an honor to have you on, Tom, because you, my friend, are the real deal. So you're coming to us from Canada right now. So are you in like a lodge or a wiki up there, or what's going on?
I'm actually in what I call the fringe city of Vancouver Island. It's Campbell River. It's where I lived for probably off and on for about 20 years. And it's a city with the highest concentration of wood carvings depicting Sasquatch in the Lehwata tribe and the Kwa-waki-wak tribes that come from here. And I'm Kwa-waki-wak. But we have the Jonakwa, the wild woman of the woods, depicted in all kinds of carvings, totem poles downtown. The museum has all kinds of masks and display cases and a giant feast dish, which is probably 12 to 14 feet long, and it's hollowed out in areas like where her breasts are and her belly and her I guess you call it their hips. And she's lying on her back, and that's a jonach. It was a feast dish that was used by the Lehwata chief and his family from one of the families from here in Campbell River area. So it's a pretty unique city, and we're right 10 minutes, we're out of town, and you're investigating Sasquatch.
Yeah, it's really amazing at how much the Sasquatch is ingrained into the culture of your tribe, and it doesn't seem to be, it just basically seems to be ignored by everybody. So we're going to get into that, and the ignoring, I promise you, is going to stop. Tom, right now, I know that there has been some, shall we say, controversy, and during the course of like the discussion tonight, we're going to be talking about what you plan on doing for research. But can you talk a little bit about, if you want to, about what happened? You know, there are some places that you go in Vancouver Island and some places you don't go. Do you want to talk about that? Because now it's time for you to say your side, your piece.
Well, Vancouver Island on the northern part from Campbell River here is the Lehwata tribal territories. Then when you go up about 30 miles north, you cross the line, which is the Kwa-waki-wak territories, where my tribe comes from. And that goes right up Vancouver Island's northeast side, through the islands between Vancouver Island and the mainland, throughout the mainland up to what we call Smith's Inlet. and around the top end of Vancouver Island to the Brooks Peninsula, pardon me, where there's 16 recognized Kwa-waki-wak tribes. And I come from the Mamliak tribe from the mouth of Knight's Inlet, the western section of the Broughton Archipelago. And it's on like Donkey Kong in my territories, but as I've found through the years, a lot of other tribes within my, with smaller tribes that are neighboring to us, they also have a lot of activity. We all just have the same belief. Please respect the Junakwa, the Sasquatch. Don't ever think of going to hunt them. Don't harm them. Don't disrespect them. So in other words, if they throw a stick or a rock at you or a piece of driftwood, don't throw it back, because number one, you're disrespecting them, and you also might end up in David Pallades' book, Foot Missing 411, the next edition. So you don't want to make them PO'd, just respect them. And that's what all of our tribe talks about. But from our western boundary at the Brooks Peninsula, south along Vancouver Island's west coast, all the way just to almost Victoria, are the Nuu-chah-nulth Nation of 24 recognized tribal groups. Now, some of them have invited me to come investigate in their territories, which Peggy and I hopefully will be doing over the next few days and weeks. But some of them are also very standoffish. They don't even discuss it. And you respect them. So you don't go into their territories without protocols, and that goes for all tribes. And then south of us on the east side of Vancouver Island, about 30 miles, is the boundary with the Salish tribes. And that goes all the way down Vancouver Island, across to Vancouver, up the Fraser River, down to the deepest depths of Puget Sound are the Salish people. And a lot of them I found are very, very quiet about it. They won't even talk about the Sasquatch, let alone invite you in their territories. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sort of learned that, as I watch the Sasquatch investigators and everything, and I learned that there needs to be an ambassador between the native tribes and the non-natives to bring out that look. Fine, go investigate, but please come to the local tribe and ask our permission and protocols. Most of us will say, yeah, no problem. You can go throughout our territories, but just don't go to these areas or don't go on the Indian Reserve. So number one, we refer to Sasquatch as the other tribe. So when we talk about the cannibal giants, we Kwa-waki-wak say that Junakwa takes misbehaving children, rubs spruce sap from the spruce tree like syrup into their eyes so they can't see, and they'll throw that misbehaving child into a basket on their back or into a sack, and they'll carry them deep into the forest where they boil them up and eat them. So they're cannibals. Well, if a bear eats a human, it's a carnivore. It's a human killer. It's not a carnivore. So if the native peoples, not just Kwa-waki-wak, but others throughout Sasquatch Island, which I refer to as Turtle Island, North America, I call it Sasquatch Island because every tribe and every region, even the non-natives, have stories of these hair-covered, giant, humanoid-looking creatures. Well, they are the other tribe. They're just a feral human with nocturnal vision, robust and bigger and hairy bodies. And as I found in my investigations with the Omaha tribe and others, they are the other tribe, and they are, referred to as just another form of human. So when you hear the term cannibal giants of the mountains, well, we natives have known for thousands of years, it's just another human.
Mm-hmm. But you have always accepted, not you personally, but it's been accepted as somebody that's predatory. That if you get in its grasp like a bear or a mountain lion, that it's probably going to try to eat you. You guys have accepted that.
I was the same way when I lived in bush for over 20 years.
Okay.
I went rogue, and it's a bush code. Everyone's so used to the social structure nowadays that we phone 911, the police get involved, we go to court. What a waste of time. Bush frontier justice is what I lived out in the bush. And I knew that when I heard something or smelled something, I would just, hello, I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. What are you up to? And, and sometimes I'd hear and they just move off. So just like walking into another human when I lived in the bush, I might come around the corner on the beach at low tide, and there's a small skiff, aluminum boat on the beach, and a man with beard, he's not native and he's digging clams. I don't walk up to him and tell him, get off my beach. He might shoot me in the belly with a gun. You just wave at him. And if he waves back and calls you, that's when you close distance. And hello, how you doing? My name's Tom. Oh, I recognized you. You got a cigarette? Oh yeah, I got a smoke. Here you go. And that's bush life. That's what we're accustomed to. But when I go to Kent, Washington, and Peggy brings me to downtown Seattle, I feel like Crocodile Dundee. I want to talk to everyone, but I know they don't even want to look at me, so I'm used to that bush world, like a Sasquatch.
Yep. So what you're saying then, going back to your, talking about your relationship with other tribes. So you basically are walking around with a target on your back that, oh, Tom Sewid is here. And, are they accusing you or afraid that you are disrespecting? Is that the issue here? Or they just don't want the spotlight brought on their land. They don't want the people coming.
I've had one tribe tell me in email, Tom, please don't investigate in our area. We don't follow that path. And I answered back, absolutely. I'll never come to your territory to investigate. If you do see me, know that I'm not investigating. And then when they did see me in their territory wearing my Sasquatch Island hat and shirt, of course, their red flags went up and they come over. What are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just here for this reason. I'm commercial fishing on that salmon seine boat. Oh, okay. You're not investigating? No, I haven't talked to your chiefs. I have no intent. You guys don't want me to. So that's how we communicate. The modern day, spokes ago, which is Facebook and Facebook Messenger and email. But at the same turn, I wouldn't dare go into someone else's territory without consulting them. Like while we're here, we'll go into my territory. Other territories that I investigate in, I've already done the protocols. I've reached out and said, hey, look, when I'm around this area, is it all right if I look for Sasquatch? Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, but you, of anybody that I've ever talked to, you've got, the cultures up there are all very well ingrained in the Sasquatch. So it's not like anybody's going to come out. At least as far as the tribes go, is going to come out and, try to defend it or even get into an argument about it. Is just because, no, it's just, it's like the seagull or the oyster. It's there. And there's really nothing to talk about. So that's all really interesting to me, but it's also really interesting. And you brought up a very good point when I interviewed you last summer in Medellin Falls, was that nobody ever asked natives, what's the history? And so that's one of the reasons that I think it's really exciting that you're going to be the first participant on the Cryptid Tank show. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. But before we get into that, I guess I'll have to just say, like right now, what's going on here? Because a lot of people are asking, okay, so what's this Cryptid coin thing and how's it associated? It's basically like this. Cryptid coin is a cryptocurrency being introduced tomorrow. Tomorrow is the ICO. And as this thing sells and goes up in price, yada, yada, yada. Stephen Major is going to dedicate a certain portion of the sales of the coin, and this is per the website, to funding research. Now, the first person that's going to apply for that funding is Tom Sewid. And what is really awesome about that is that Tom is not only the real deal, he's got experience as a fishing boat captain, experience hunting Bigfoot, and he's really, as they say, right in the middle of the what as far as Bigfoot goes. So, Tom, let me just ask you, first of all, you're going to be on this show called Cryptid Tank. Do you have any idea what you're in for?
No, I don't. I'm going to go to Spokane. I know that. And I hate flying in airplanes. So that's a big hurdle. But,
okay.
I'm just, I did one of Stephen Major's, I think it was a radio show or TV show I did with him a couple of years ago. And that was fun. So I'm looking forward to it. But I imagine, there's going to be people probably maybe being skeptics.
Well, actually, you're going to get raked over the coals. It is going to be the world against Tom Sewid. And the whole point is, well, and it won't just be you. We're going to have, actually, I think we're going to have two other people coming in before you to apply for these grants. And, I just want to let you know that, and to let people know that are listening about how the show goes, is that we will have a panel of, we're going to have a banker, we're going to have Bill Bassan. As far as I know, Bill's doing it, and Bill was in charge of the Medellin Falls Bigfoot Festival. He's a Bigfoot researcher and really knows this stuff. And then the other one is a lawyer, right? So you're going up against a banker, a lawyer, and a guy who looks for Bigfoot. And you're going to go in and based on you're going to fill out a grant proposal, and I'm going to, I didn't have a chance to send it to you, but I'm going to flash it on the screen so people can see it. But you're going to fill out the grant proposal, and you're going to use that money if you get it, and if you can get past these people, because from what I've heard, they're really not nice, and they don't want to give away any money. So I think it's going to be it's going to be a challenge for you. But I personally think that you're the man that's really going to be up for it. And I'm excited to see you on, because, you have exactly the kind of personality that, you can defend yourself, and you've got a lot of research evidence. So I can't wait to have you on. And I don't know if you know this, but I am the host of the show. Did you know that?
Good. That's good.
So you're going to have another person picking on you. So
you got to remember, I'm an Indian. Peggy and I have been on Vancouver Island for over a week, and what we're doing is negotiating with the Federal Department of Fisheries and Oceans, which is like your fish and game down in the United States. And we're trying to get grants so that we can, I'm the president of Pacific Balance Marine Management, which is the push to have a licensed harvest like you would for coyotes or deer for seals and sea lions here in British Columbia's coast. And being an Indian all my life, I want toilet paper. What do? Well, we apply for a grant. So I'm well versed at applying for grants. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, and also, it's going to be, there will be, you're going to have to defend the past research you've done. And one thing that I really would be interested in right now is, and I think that, just for this podcast and for the people listening, is can you talk a little bit about some of the, and not as, you don't have to give away your best stuff, but what's some of the evidence that you've seen personally that really makes you believe?
Well, first off, I've never researched a day in my life. I'm a speculative investigator, and I've had a lot of chance encounters where Chunahua has come and crossed paths with me. So I've seen them numerous times because I lived in the bush for over 20 plus years out in the Broughton Archipelago, traveled the entire coast as a commercial fisherman. And when you're a commercial fisherman, the wind kicks up, you're anchored in a sheltered cove out in the middle of Timbuk flipping nowhere. What do? Let's go to shore, boys. Go do a little beach combing, and then I go do some investigating. So I've never researched a day of my life. I'm trying to. When I hopefully get that Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey interaction, then I become a researcher. And that's why I don't ever use the R word. Not until that happens. Hopefully it's with me. Hopefully it's someone else. But I guess some of the best evidence I have is Nusa, to tell stories in our language. The lifetime I've had where I was fortunate enough to be mesmerized by the stories from the elders, and I still am. And even though I'm considered an elder now because I'm over 55, but sitting there in my grandfather's house and on galley tables and decks of commercial fish boats and in hooligan camps up at the head of Knight's Inlet when I was 16, and hearing those old people that aren't with us no more tell us about Chunahua. And to me, when an elder speaks, when you go to a potlatch and you hear a song and that song's telling you about what an ancestor saw, who knows, hundreds, thousands of years ago, and you see that chief and his family's Chunahua crest come to life in dance and song with regalia, mask and fur regalia, and you hear that song. Sometimes I got to poke someone and go, hey, translate for me, because I'm not fluent in Kwa-waki-wak, our language. But you hear what happened. To me, that's the greatest evidence I have of the existence of Sasquatch, because we don't doubt our ancestors. And that's why when skeptics come across my path, I go rogue and rip them apart. Because how dare you say that my thousands of ancestors were full of BS and were speaking with a forked tongue? They weren't. They were telling the truth. Mm-hmm. But me out in the bush, you know, it's the times I was out there and I had my encounters with them, you know, I've yet to see their bones, because I know through the investigations I've done and talking to elders from different tribes, it's indicative here, and to me, to the native people, that the Sasquatch bury their dead in catacombs and caves. In one tribal place in central United States, they dig like a gopher, a hole into the side of the hill, because it's soft sands and so forth. But when one of their members of their clan die, they leave them in there and they collapse it and bury it, plug the hole. So I asked that individual, what happens if there's a landslide or riverbank erosion and the bones get exposed? Well, they always live there. They just dig it back up and move it to another place and reseal it. So I know through the history of our people, the indigenous people of Sasquatch Island, North America, we all know what Sasquatch does, or whatever we call them. They bury them. So am I ever going to see a burial ground? Well, there's a place I know where I can look up and see an island that has old growth, just a little patch up top. Loggers in the early 1900s stumbled across the cave with bones in it, big bones. And when they went to the native village to report, and they brought some native hunters in to go identify this place, that cave entry was all rocks, boulders, and trees pushed down on it. It was the Chonakwas saying, okay, you stumbled across one of our catacombs for burying our dead, but you're not allowed to touch them. And they let it be known. And the loggers back then, even though, you know, back then they started at the water, went up the mountain, down the other side, across the water, and up another mountain and down, they chose to leave that top of that island old growth forest. The Sasquatches are buried up there. And in place I go, I don't want to divulge it, but I can look up, and when I see that old growth patch, I say, the non-Indians back in the middle of the 1900s listened to us Indians and heeded the warning of the Sasquatch, leave our burial ground alone. So, you know, that's some of the best evidence I have. You know, yeah, I've seen the footprints. I don't pay no attention to tree structures, because to me, I'm a Hamatsa. Hamatsa. It's a secret society of the Kwa-waki-wak people. I gave you all the hint. I'm going to talk about it. Google it. Read about it. It's in all the books and the archives. The Hamatsa society, though, is a very secret society to this day. And as a member of that, you know, we know we can't say anything about it. And there's some things about Sasquatch that I've heard I can't even speak about, you know, and it's, you know, and it's hard, you know, because I'm in the modern day, I want to find conclusive proof, but at the same turn, I can't break those ancient laws. So I have to watch it in that regard. But the evidence I've seen, though, is my eyes up close. You know, a lot of people, everyone out there, they're all trying to be bloodhounds, trying to sniff and catch a Sasquatch. I actually put the jig on Sasquatches, meaning I turn the table. They become the one that gets spooked instead of me. I was in a cabin and I snuck out of the window and I crawled to the bush. We're building cabins for a tourist operation in 2012. And I buried myself in leaves just before dark. And I was all covered in this pile of alder leaves, like maple leaves. And that juvenile 6'2", 6'4" Sasquatch was creeping along the tree line looking at our cabins. He grabbed the tree with his left arm and he stepped down a 5-foot berm onto the trail where I was on the other side of it, buried in leaves. He's looking at my cabin some 40, 60 feet away. And I popped out of the leaves. Hey, what are you doing? Ah! And all of a sudden that Sasquatch, his eyes went huge, his mouth opened, he roared, he jumped, he pulled himself off the tree, and when he let it go, it was snapping like that. And the leaves were falling down, and here's me laughing away, and here's a Sasquatch. Rah, 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 just running through the bush, pissed right off that I turned the tables on them. So that's one of my greatest encounters, getting close to them. And the reason why I did that, it wasn't disrespecting them. I had peed all around my camp. I was telling them, this is my turf. And the outhouse trail to the outhouse is my turf. But the rest of the island's yours. What are you doing coming across my pea lines and coming into my turf? And after that, next few days later, I had a little eyeball contact with his dad, the big, huge monster one. And he was buried in leaves. And I was looking at him with his Bushnell 3x9 scope cranked to max. And when he knew that I was looking at him and two of my crew were with me, he pulled himself out of the leaves and looked right at my eyes and let it be known that, okay, no war. He turned and walked away, and the boundaries were established. And we never had any more interactions. Our garlic and our apples never went missing again. And we were at peace. But that's bush. You got to piss higher up the fence post than the other one. And that's what I was doing. So when everyone else is trying to sniff and find a Sasquatch, I'm out there turning the tables on them and eyeball locking with them to let them know that, I'm like you, I'm a rogue. I hated humans in the 90s, couldn't stand human beings, city and concrete. And I went into the bush, and there was times when I was out there, I was totally rogue. I'd see foresters out there smoking cigarettes when I was out, drinking coffee from thermoses when I hadn't had coffee in a couple months. And I just, like a Sasquatch, pulled the branch down and I watched him. And then I just realized, no, I don't want anything to do with you. So I let the branch up, slowly turned and walked away. And I know what it's like to be a watcher, a Sasquatch. I know what it's like to be rogue when you want to just go pop heads off. So I've been there. I know how they think. And that's one of the greatest things I find is the decades of being in the bush and alone many times, up in the alpines, weeks and months on end in bush. I know that I can, and being a hunting guide, I was specialized in grizzly and black bears, but I was a hunting guide for years. And when you put those skills together, I'm not bragging or anything, but, there's not too many people that have the same genetic experience buildup that I have. So when you look for a Sasquatch, and if I'm in a competition to find Sasquatch, like I did with 5 snake eater special forces Canadian military guys at one of my campsites that were kayaking a number of years ago. And they were, you can't stay away from us. We're special forces. We're the airborne. Rah, rah, rah. And I said, okay, we all got cameras. I said, give me about 15 minutes head start, 24 hours. You guys take a picture of me or capture me, you win the money. We put a few $100s down. And 24 hours later, when I walked up to the fire and there's those snake eater special forces, I said, yesterday you were picking your nose when you're having a poop. I seen you masturbating. You don't like mosquitoes. You were sleeping in this place. And they couldn't believe that we were on that small island. And they never got a picture of me. But when they developed the film, I had pictures of them day and night over a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
So
can I just point out these are Canadian special forces? So
yeah, not as good as your American ones. But they're ass kickers.
Yep. Okay. Well, sounds like they have a lot of fun out in the woods. That is for sure. So, all right, Mr. Tom Sewid. So let's talk a little bit about as you said, regalia. What is the story? I saw a fantastic show out in Medellin Falls. What's the story with the regalia?
So my wife, Peggy, has gone to potlatch, and in the native way, she was given at a potlatch when our chief held the ceremony with all our family participating. Peggy and her daughter were given names from our box of treasure of names. So Peggy's basically a Sewid, and, we're common law married. She's a Sewid, and the way the natives look at it, she's my wife. So I went to the chiefs and said, from my family, I said, is it all right if she performs our regalia? Works out. She's pretty good shape. And so they said, yes, she can perform our regalia because she's part of the family. So I go on stage and I talk about Bukwas, and that's the little people, the small little hair-covered bipedal creature in our culture. And when I talk about that, you'll hear a wee, 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 wee behind the stage. And all of a sudden I say, hey, sounds like there's a Bukwas around. And then all of a sudden Peggy comes out. posturing and dancing in the green ghillie suit regalia outfit with the mask carved the cedar wood of the puss hiding behind its arm and doing the posturing like it's on a beach digging for cockles, a type of shellfish, making that whistling noise like puss are said to hear. And then she disappears. And then I talk about how even Dr. Jeff Meldrum, my good friend, when I bought his book for $22 and got a selfie with them in Sasquatch Summit in Quinault Indian Reserve Casino, I was all happy. I met Dr. Jeff Meldrum. And when I got home and I'm reading a book, I threw it. What the hell anyway? Hasn't he listened to me? Bukwus is not our Sasquatch. Junach is. So that's what I explained. And then all of a sudden you hear, whoop, whoop, whoop. Oh, sounds like a Junach. All of a sudden Peggy comes out on stage in the mask and the regalia of the Junach with the basket on her back. And she rubbing her eyes. And I'm not going to tell too much because you got to see the performance. Got to bring me to your conference or come to the conference where we're performing. But she comes out and does that. So at the end of our stage performance of an hour or so, everyone understands the difference between the Bukwus and the Junach and how sacred and powerful it is to the Kwa-waki-wak people and why we respect it so much that we would never hunt it because it's the strongest crest the family can own.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you guys get back to Kent, I know some people on Mercer Island, they're doing a children's show, and this is a completely aside, but I told them about your thing, and they're really interested in having you come and perform on their children's show. So maybe you guys can get linked up with that. But yeah, I saw your show, and I'd actually, when I do my editing, I'd like to put a little bit, maybe I'll just throw the pictures in or something, because I've got some footage, of course, of you guys, of Peggy, and
just don't show,
don't show the face.
The one with the one with the mouthpiece.
Okay.
With the extended mouthpiece. Don't show that. Just show the straight mask.
Okay. And so I have to try this now, because I've heard you say it so many times. It's Chunakwa. Chuna, what?
DZ, Chunakwa.
Chunakwa.
Chunakwa, yeah.
Am I even close? Chunakwa. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you're hitting it.
Okay, so Chunakwa, is that the female or is that the entire species?
It's the female. It was lost in interpretation because Chunakwa means wild woman of the woods. But we have another one, and I can't remember the exact pronunciation. But if you go to Sasquatch Island, my Facebook group, and go back about a year, and I'll try to repost it. It's one of our well-known Kwa-waki-wak carvers from Northern Vancouver Island, Kelvin Hunt. And he got video recorded explaining the difference between the male Junakwa or female Junakwa named this Junakwa and the male one, and how we see it in the potlatch when a man becomes a chief. They will put that male Junakwa mask on his face, or he has to dance with the male Junakwa with the mustache. So we do have that male-female difference, but it's always been referred to as Chunakwa, wild woman of the woods, big breasts, sleepy eyes, puckered lips. On our, what you guys call totem poles, we call memorial poles, welcoming poles, dowry poles, ridicule poles, and house posts. So in the Burke Museum and University of Washington, the Chunakwa holding up the big shield is a ridicule pole. And that's to do with the potlatches of old. And when you go to Seattle and you go to Occidental Square and see that beautiful Chunakwa mask with outstretched or carving with outstretched arms, that's a replica of a welcoming pole that would have been in front of a chief's big house back in the day.
Okay, cool. So just bear with me for a second. So Chunakwa is the female and more predominant, more there seems to be more interaction. You have stories of her grabbing children and putting them in the basket, whatever. Where's there's not stories of the male, and you don't even have a name for the male, right? I mean, the Chunakwa is the female. What's the male? I mean, it's not really there. I mean,
I think it's like up until the end of the Second World War, when the atomic bombs were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, I think it was just like the Emperor of Japan. he was God status. You didn't say his name. You didn't see him.
Okay.
And the male Junachwa, the only time you will see that mask, you won't see it dance. I've never seen it dance, and from any of the families. And the only time you see it is when that chief passes in 3 years or more, a male in the carves a memorial pole for that past chieftain, works with the family to accumulate wealth, gifts, and food. And they have this 1 or 2 day potlatch ceremony, a memorial potlatch for that chief who died. And it starts out with a morning service in the morning. Then it goes to lunch. Everyone gets fed. Then it goes into the cedar bark ceremony. Cedar bark ceremony ends, and then it goes into the other ceremonies and dances. And you see all of the family's wealth of crests come to life in dance and song, and all the societies they have family members in that get initiated by dance and song, like us Hamatzas in a certain part. Everything regimented. Then at the end, the floor gets filled with over $100,000 worth of gifts. You name it, it's on there. And the chiefs, the speeches take place. And afterwards, the helicom, the chief speaker, comes and says, this man has fulfilled the obligations to take on the role of the new chief of this family. He's done this, filled your bellies with food 3 times each day over 2 days. Look at all the gifts that they have on the floor. Does anyone contest that this man cannot be the chief of this family, basically? No one contests, and that's when they put the male Junacha mask on his face. This man will be referred to as this chief and his name. And that's when the acknowledgement of having the male Junacha mask on his face, that's how sacred and powerful the Junacha male is. It's, and even like a Hamatsa society, Kwa-waki-wak, the cannibal from the north end of the world, is who I belong to. He's so sacred. You don't see his mask being performed on the big house floor. You don't see his image carved into poles. There's one rock I know of that has a pictograph painting of his fierce eyes and chiseled chipped teeth like fangs, looking all angry on that rock wall at a sacred bathing site. And that's how powerful Kwa-waki-wak is. And that is how powerful the male Junacha is. It's grand. So it's so powerful, we don't want to disgrace it by carving it or making stickers out of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right then. So I have to ask you this. In like native lore, like the Plains Indians, they would have their spirit quest, and they would identify with an animal. And I assume that, I don't know if this is a fact or not, but I assume they take on the characteristics of the animal somewhat. Does the Chunakwa become, does a person take on their characteristics like strength or wisdom or anything?
I wouldn't go that far, I know, because I'm half Cree from Saskatchewan, the plains of Canada. Biggest nation in Canada is a Cree nation. My mother's full blood, so I'm half breed. But it's hard to cross over to that because there's so much Hollywood involved in it. Like, I was at Beachfoot, and they had a drum with the Sasquatch design, which come from I know what tribe and what family. And it's a crest, that exact diamond. Someone just duplicated it and put it on a deer drum, and they're all out there, hi-ya, hoya, hoya, and doing this. And I wouldn't participate, because to me, that was disrespecting, number one, the family, because I doubt they asked for permission to duplicate, plagiarize their design. And the songs are property of a family. You don't just listen to a song and go, oh, I want to use that for my Sasquatch dance. You don't do that. You got to have the title to that song. And, me, that's why when I go on stage and that, I'm not a singer. So I'm not going to go up there and, that's hokey BS. There's no way I'm going to go down that path. But when we filmed here in Campbell River pre-COVID, I hired 2 younger than me males who are historians and amazing dancer, drummer, artists. And they were there in full regalia in the big house singing. They gave me permission. gone to our chief and he's given me permission to use our Junakwa song for your film show. So that was an honor. And we're soon to release that, Sasquatch Island, the other tribe. And it's just amazing. It just gives you tingles when you see me in that Junakwa regalia of mine. And all of a sudden I come in front of that big house post, which is the world's largest wood Junakwa carving on earth. And here I am in a ceremonial big house, and you see the camera pan, and you see the thunderbirds and eagles and whale carvings, and these two drummers, singers in their full regalia, and these two elder ladies that were interviewing that day sitting there in blankets because it was cold, like they do in potlatches. It just puts tingles in you, like, wow. And that's what I'm opening up to the world is we don't need to go to that hokey Hollywood. I have the Junakwa spirit in my chest and I feel its power in my heart. We're not going to go down that BS path because we have the potlatch. We have the regalia. We have the songs. And that's what I'm sharing. But at the same time, we have societies. And I don't know of a Junakwa society, but I do know of a wolf society, dog society, swan society. I belong to the Hamatsa society. There's a double-headed sea serpent, Sisio society. But I'm a Hamat. I can't speak about those other societies because it's not my place. We're the highest rank next to the chieftains. So I can't talk about those lower tier societies that I don't belong to.
Yeah, I actually know about these societies because I wrote a book and there were like elements of Freemasonry in the Americas. So I know a little bit about the secret societies in the Native American tradition. So, all right. Well, interesting. Now we got about maybe 15 or 20 minutes left. And there's a lot of stuff I still want to ask you. So let's go back to this Cryptid Tank thing. And you're going to go in and apply for a grant, whatever. So what's the plan if you get your grant? What are you going to do with that money? What do you plan on doing with it?
Gonna do what I've always said to everyone. Put this Indian guide for Sasquatches now on a boat and let's go out for up to a week out into their domain. Drop anchor, look at the tide book to know that it's prime time to be at this place at night when the big low tide is in place. Every tide is different level. You need a big one. So all the big clams and cockles are exposed for a long time because that's when Sasquatch is going to come out of the forest, walk onto the beach and bend down and start picking the cockles and smash them together and eat the meat. And as he's doing that, we're sitting on the boat with our FLIRs and our recorders recording that bipedal FLIR image on there, and then get in the tender and go slowly with oars towards it, closing distance. And yo, Weeksas, Junakwa, hello, how are you doing? Talk to him, put a light on, and hopefully we'll have him standing there curious. What do you want with me there, hairless human? And maybe we'll get the 5-minute eye lock. He's not going to let me get close to him. You got to remember, they're feral humans. They're wild man in the woods, wild woman in the woods, but maybe they'll give us that 30 seconds of being standing there like I am with this big reflector thing so you guys can see me. Maybe he'll stand there and put his hand in front of his face like I've seen them do it. Walk off. And like that happened with me when I was at anchor, walk into the bush, grab a big rotten tree, push it down. Boom. I'm not happy with you, is what he just said by pushing that tree down. Maybe he's going to bang, bang, hit the next tree. Bang, bang. I'm not happy with you. And, then I'm going to go to the beach and dig some cockles because it's low tide. I got to bring them up to the beachhead. That's why we call it Cockle Thrower Bay, because when you're clam digging, as soon as you come across the delicacy, the cockles, so for every 100 pounds of clams, you might get on the average beach 2 to half a dozen cockles. Wow. As soon as you get them, bring them up to the beach and throw them in the bush at this particular bay because they know that's their bay. They don't want humans in there. And if you don't go throw cockles into the bush, all hell's going to break loose. And there's been some amazing encounters in there conflicts between the humans and clam diggers and the Sasquatch. So you throw cockles to pacify him. And maybe while I'm doing that, maybe he'll look at me from the bush. Well, I'll have a body camera on then. Well, show me a skeptic who's going to argue that they don't exist, and they hear it, see it, everything but smell it. Well, I'll hit them upside the head with a trail camera if they get too skeptical on my butt. I'll go rogue on their ass, because I put my life on the line trying to get what needs to be got so that we can start protecting their environment, which is our environment. And as humans, dummy the hell up. We can't keep clear cutting the way we are. We can't keep urban sprawling the way we are. We can't, Butte Inlet right across from me from this hotel window had the massive landslide 2 winters ago, where a 200-foot tsunami went down the valley and into the saltwater because the loggers took too many damn trees up on the high ground. So we as humans are the dumbest critter on this planet. We'll defecate and grow fish and prawns in the defecation in the water and eat that prawn or that fish, tilapia and all that. It's stupid. We have to get more like a Sasquatch, be a little bit more respectful of the environment that we all share on this rock flying through the solar system called planet Earth. And I believe the Sasquatch is the last vestige, our last hope to dummy the beep up and start looking after our backyards and doing things a little differently. Because we continue on this path, we're going to extinct species real fast.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Tom, we've got a few minutes left, and we always try to look at these phenomena with, all the different kinds of glasses and whatever. And so the question is, well, I guess I'd have to ask you. So you want to pull your boat up near the beach and observe the beach? Is it just a matter of time that you're talking about? You just need a longer time to sit there, and then you think that they'll come out?
It's about charter a boat for that time period of a week is basically about $1,500 a day. Your average wage for a captain right now in British Columbia is $475 to $700 a day. Wow. Then you got the fuel on the boat at $8 a gallon for diesel here in Campbell River. And then you got food, $2 for a bunch of green onions up here on Vancouver Island. $50-$60 for 2 steaks in the grocery store. Even though we'll be eating a lot of seafood and eating like a Sasquatch, it's bloody expensive up here. So for me to get out there, this time of the year, it's going to be a considerable, probably 60-75% of the, if I do win, is going to go towards that boat. But we're not just going to be sitting on the boat drinking beverages and using a flush toilet. We're going to be boots on the ground at daylight, deep into the bush, where I know there's structures because I've seen them there. I've seen where they're sleeping, where the ferns are 4 feet deep and hemlock branches, and it just stinks where they sleep in these certain areas. I hunted up there and lived up there as a camp watchman, so I know that area and I know it's a hot spot. So, that's why I want to get there and get boots on the ground. Stephen Majors grew up there on a floating logging camp. He knows the stories of the Sasquatches up there. And the one thing we have going for that area is they are mean. They're aggressive. They took a 1,200-pound aluminum skiff and flipped it upside down with a 200-pound generator. These Sasquatches, not just rogues, seems like all the clan is rogue bent. And what they're doing is protecting their homeland. Like when you look, I'm not going to divulge it right now, but when I show you guys in that show, Google Earth of that area, we going where Tarzan and the apes are, man. It's crazy. And I lived up there. I know how sideways it can go real fast. And there ain't no cell tone where we're going. And your VHF radio ain't going to reach the mainland. So basically, we're out in the middle of Timbuk nowhere. We're in the backyard of Sasquatch.
Yep. Could be what happened to Tom Sewid. Because it really sounds like you're happened. Well, so Tom, how many people do you plan on taking with you?
I've told the people I'm talking to that I need a captain in his boat.
But how many people will be getting off and going on shore?
4.
4? Okay.
At this time, yeah. And the reason for that is the bigger boat, the more expense. So if a gill net fishing boat or a troller fishing boat or a small cabin cruiser, which are about $1,500 or more a day with the captain, usually have 3 bunks. The galley table drops down for the captain's bunk, who sleeps all night. But my team will always be hot bunking. So 2 people will be sleeping till 1 a.m. Then they'll switch with the 2 people on deck who are out there with furs and everything, with the tender ready to go ashore. I'm probably even going to be bait. I'll go ashore by myself with the dinghy and walk around. And, I got to get conclusive proof with the videography equipment we have. P1000 Nikon we just bought with a 120 zoom lens built in. I can see craters on the moon.
Wow.
So if I'm on that boat 75 yards from the beach, I'm going to be able to see the wrinkles in the plaque in his teeth. So that's what I want to do. In the daytime when I'm in that bush, I'm going to be able, that's why I always laugh at all these supposed Sasquatch researchers out there, the little lenses like that and their GoPros looking for Sasquatch in the bush. And I'm just like, oh, come on now. Sasquatch ain't going to be that close. And if you do see him, he's going to be tree peeking on you like that. Well, get that 120 zoom and bring him on in and go, oh, look at that. He's got brown eyes. You got to be smart. You got to put ingenuity into being a Sasquatch investigator. It's not about, look at me, look how good I am in the Sasquatch world investigating. I'm a researcher. No, it's about reaching out with the lens. No offense to the people out there, but white man's magic, that Nikon P1000. And if I get close to them, I'm going to bag and tag and get some crispy images.
Well, that is interesting. And my thing is I think you're either going to scare them off or piss them off, but it is going to be interesting. I'm sure. So, are you not afraid of, them coming out and kicking your butt at some point?
It was a good day to die, and what a hell of a way to go down. That'll be a nice thing on my gravestone, taken out by rogue Sasquatch.
Yeah.
I'm going to show him total respect. So I don't plan on him getting aggressive on me. He'll get aggressive this is my turf. And with body camera and the camera behind me, that's what we're trying to do, document him. But, I'm a bushman. Yeah. And if anything, and I've told Stephen this, anything comes within my 20-foot radius, I don't care if it's a human. I have a status card in my pocket that says I can harvest for food, social, ceremonial purposes 365 days a year without license or permit. I don't care what it is. It could be a Martian, it could be a human, it could be a rabid frog. It gets within 20 feet of me and it's aggressive. Well, let's just say I either go down swinging or I'm going to be the one sitting there at the end going, damn it, why the hell did you go do that? So, you never hunt them. But at the same turn, there's no law says you don't protect yourself at all costs.
Yep. So, all right, we're running out of time here, Tom. Now, you are in an area that is not just a Bigfoot area, but you're talking about Thunderbird. You're talking about multiple cryptids that are up there, right?
You try to sell some more coins.
Well, exactly. Well, I'm trying to do that thing into the show, that Cryptid Coin thing. But when we do this, and I'm sure that when you do your research, this is going to be a full-fledged movie, but you've got more than just Bigfoot up there. You've got what else?
We got Bakwas, the little ones, little hair-covered creatures. We hear about sea youth, the sea serpent, still swimming around out here, a big long neck and yada, yada, yada. We call them sea youth. We got them in our society and carvings. Thunderbird is UFOs. And my grandmother filled me. That's a whole different show. I'll get into it. But Thunderbird, Kwa-waki-wak is UFOs. And there's other creatures out there that we have. We have the underwater sea Sasquatch. But I don't have that in my family crest or family box of treasures, so I can't speak about it. But maybe one day I'll get someone who has that crest in there, that title, and they can share what the underwater Sasquatch is all about.
Okay. So we got just a few minutes left. Why haven't we found Sasquatch?
Yes, they despise us. They loathe us. Look what we've done to our backyard and their backyard. We've given them smallpox, influenza, tuberculosis. And since 1965, when I was born, there was about 800 Kwa-waki-wak. We were 96% decimated by the disease after contact. Well, if you look at the Sasquatches, well, Lewis and Clark and others came with their printing presses. There's all these mountain devils and Jersey devils and bush apes and Ape Canyon. But then all of a sudden they all coincide, they disappear, coinciding with smallpox, influenza, Spanish flu of 1918 onwards. Well, the Sasquatches got sick. I can go into a whole hour-long show just on the evidence on that through the oral history of the native tribes throughout North America and BC especially. But since 1965, 1967, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin in the pubic hair of North America, the yarn basket, which is a forest where I don't investigate because it's a waste of bloody time, get out in the beaches and riverbanks and fields and urban edge farms and that's where you're going to bag and tag Sasquatch with your cameras and everything else. But since 1967, when Sasquatch was captured, well, notice how they're getting more and more Sasquatch recordings on TikTok. They're coming out monthly, weekly. Facebook, the same thing. Well, what's happened? The Sasquatch is just like the Hispanic people in North America and us indigenous Indians. We're proliferating like bunny rabbits. Their population is exploding as ours is. And the chance of us getting conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch is getting better and better.
So you think the Sasquatch population is going up?
Oh, big time. Big time.
Okay.
Like we're actually seeing Sasquatches here on Vancouver Island that are establishing clan territories outside of a stream river system where there's salmon. They're in inferior zone logging slashes and timber and digging in dumpsters at a mill site or a fish farm that's out in the middle of nowhere, the hatcheries. And what we're finding is all of the prime territories, like when you look at Vancouver Island and you look at the rivers, the big rivers have tributaries where the salmon spawn. Well, in every river on Vancouver Island, there's probably one clan of a family unit of anywhere from what we're finding from 2 to a dozen. Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at the amount of river systems on Vancouver Island that produce salmon, which you can Google, it establishes if you say there's 4 Sasquatch in every river system, you get a number of over 1,200 Sasquatches on Vancouver Island. Mm-hmm. And now we're getting the inferior zone between the river systems where Sasquatch youngish looking males are starting to establish territories. You know, it's showing that there's a population explosion. It's no different than a suburb that fills up with homes being bought. You clear more trees and more roads, which are your salmon tributary rivers. And of course, more houses, more Sasquatches. Mm-hmm. And it's like that across North America. Even in the Northwest Territories, you're finding the Naga populations are increasing.
Fantastic. That, because you don't think about things like that. And I would have thought that with the urban sprawl and whatever, and I imagine up in Vancouver Island, it's just the clear cutting. I don't imagine you have the urban sprawl like we have down here on the west side. But anyway, I would think that would be diminishing the Sasquatch. The
southern part of Vancouver Island is southeastern Vancouver Island to the south tip from where we are down is no different than driving from Lake Samish, I think it is, south of Bellingham down to Longview, Washington. Mm-hmm. Town after town after city, okay. Then a town, a fence, a road, a subdivision. Too many damn people on my island. Don't move here.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
The northern part is still wild, though. That's where I go.
All right. Well, Tom, it's been fantastic having you on Encounters USA. Do you want to say anything before we go? Because the next time we'll see you will be, I think we're going to air that episode on March 9th. So do you want to say anything before you go for the evening?
Just everyone go to Sasquatch Island on Facebook. That's my group. Go to SasquatchIsland.com if you want to book an expedition with me and buy my native art of Sasquatches. And Sasquatch Island on YouTube to see my videos, which are very unique. I chatter like a Sasquatch. And if you like listening to my BS and whatever, not that I am, I'm telling the truth, but go to monsterxradio.com. My podcast, Sasquatch Island, is on there.
So it's monsterxradio.com?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of archival stuff, but I talk about some interesting things that you won't hear on any other podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Everything that you say is stuff that I haven't heard before. So it's been fantastic having you on here, Tom. It was great to meet you last summer. And I was just so impressed with all the stuff that you're doing. And I can't wait to get you on our little Cryptid Tank show and see if we can't get you that Cryptid Coin grant for your research. So,
Yeah.
Tom, I just have to say this as I close. Give our regards to Peggy. It's always a pleasure. I think she's in the background, right? So
Yeah.
give our regards to her. And good luck to you up there in Canada, eh?
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on, and to all your listeners, halakalist, go in peace.
Thank you. And I'm going to do my my goodbye, and that is if you're with Tom Sewid or Peggy up in Canada, or if you're just out in the woods looking for your favorite cryptid, remember always watch your back.